Hey, Wood fam. This is Leo with One Happy Widow. I got a web camera. I don't know if it's any better than my computer. So I'm trying it. I still haven't figured out how to use my real nice, expensive camera. So that's a work in progress. Hello, Jonice and Teresa are already with us. And welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining our live session. Let me go ahead and address the elephant in the room. So a few weeks ago, I went blonde because I was trying to go silver, and it wasn't silver. It was just yellowish, blondish, yellow. And so my daughter, my 19-year-old daughter, who is in cosmetology school, she's like, "Don't worry, Mom, I got you. I got you." And so she found this stuff from Sally's Beauty where she works, and it was like this color depositing shampoo. It was supposed to be silver or gray. And so I put it on there, and it was terrible. It turned purple. I'm trying to find the photos, and I can't really put a photo up except for, yeah, it was like, I don't know. I guess it was silverish, purplish. I don't know if you can see that, but it was horrible. And it's supposed to wash out. And I've already washed it 3 times, and it's still like, it kind of looks silver in this light, but really it's blue. It's just blue hair. And I'm hoping that it just kind of like continues to wash out. I'm too old for blue hair, or maybe I'm too young for blue hair. I don't know. I was trying to go with silver, and I got blue. It's greenish, purplish, bluish. I don't know what you call it. Anyway, so yes, I know that it looks funny, and all I can do is just wait and hope that it washes out soon. So, that's just what we get. We're always experimenting when we do new stuff with our hair. All right. So it looks like Sheila has joined us, Laurie has joined us, and Tammy has joined us. Hello. And Melinda, first time with y'all. Glad to be here. Thank you so much, Melinda, for coming in. So today's topic is, it's not as long as normal. And so we probably won't be going as long as we normally do, which probably is good for other people. But I want to give you guys some updates first. And I know some people complain on here that I ramble too much, and that's just me. I'm a rambler, and so that's what I do. And so it's not for everybody, and I get that. It's just me as a person. And if you don't like the rambling, then sorry. You can always click off, I guess. Or if you're watching the recording, you just fast forward until the rambling's over, I guess, and then we can get like right to the thing. So, everybody is not for everybody. What bothers me sometimes is when I watch these videos and I do my chair back and forth and I, swivel. It bothers me, but I don't realize I'm doing it. And so I'm going to try to stop. I can't guarantee it though. It's just part of my ADHD. All right. So today's topic that we will start talking about in just a minute is grief is not a competition. There's not a whole heck of a lot to say about it, but I do have some notes that I want to talk about. And then I love your rambling. Well, I'm glad somebody likes the rambling, right? Because I try to share real life stuff with you guys so that I have a topic to talk about, but I have a life too. And so I try to share some of those things with you so that you'll understand that I'm just a real person and I'm trying to get through this life as a widowed person, just like all of you are. And or you might know somebody who's widowed and you're trying to find out how to help them. And so that's just part of it. Like crap that happens to you every day is just part of it, right? So we love rambling. We need rambling. Hello, sisters from Linda. Also, I know that maybe I won't call out the name, but I know there's someone on this group that was having some issues getting on the private Facebook group. So I don't want to call you out in case you're whatever, but that should be fixed. I had it set to hidden and I had to put it to where it could be found. I was just having some technology problems. And so the private Facebook group is ready to go. So try that link again and it should work. Now I tried it on my husband and he tried to join. I fixed it with him and he's on there now. So I know it works from his end. It's hard to fix things from the front end because you don't know what the back end, what the customers are seeing or the clients are seeing or the students are seeing or whatever. So sometimes it's hard to know what those mistakes are. We tune in to listen to the real life stuff. Thank you for sharing. Humble Dad talking to a young lady. She thinks I'm not ready to date, but is willing to wait and with me through my grief. Thoughts? Okay, so humble dad, let me go through the topics, and then we get to the end, we will go through question and answer, and so I will definitely address that at the end. Okay, so I want to get through the topics because otherwise I will definitely ramble and I'll never get to a single point. So when we get to the end, we'll have some Q&A, and then I'll be able to address that. Okay. So first, before we get to the actual topic, I just want to give you some updates on One Happy Widow and where things are going with the whole, I call it the business because it's part of it is the business, right? So just so you know, if you're watching live or recorded, that today, Saturday, March 12th, is the last day to sign up for the course and get the free Facebook group, the 1-month Facebook group free with the purchase of the course. So if you're thinking about signing up for the course, it will continue to be available, but it's not going to have the free Facebook 1-month group membership with it after today. So let me put the link in the chat. You know, I can't type and talk at the same time. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so the link is in the chat, but it's www.onehappywidow.com/courses. So if you just put onehappywidow.com/courses and go there, you'll see all 3 options. The first option is the full pivot course, which has the 28 lessons. It has the Facebook group membership included with it as for free for 1 month, but the course is available forever. Okay. Then you have, I broke it down into just one mini course. So it's the same as the full course. It's just the first part of it. So it's the first out of 4 modules that you can purchase if you don't want to purchase the whole course. Okay. So that course is going along. And honestly, for this month, I just sent invitations to the private Facebook group to even the people who bought the mini course, just so that we could have a larger group in the Facebook group and have more people talking. So honestly, if you sign up for either course, really, you'll get an invitation to the private Facebook group. If you don't want to sign up for either one of the courses and you just want to be a part of the Facebook group for a month, the private Facebook group, then I have a place you can purchase that also on the courses page. It's $17 and it's just a membership to the Facebook group. We'll have 4 live sessions, weekly live sessions that will not be public. It will only be available to the people in the group. We'll have journal prompts every day. There's already one posted for today. So when you go in and join, you'll see that journal prompt. You can post it. You can either answer on the group or you can answer on paper. If you want some journal pages, I've got, and this is for anybody. If you want journal pages, I've created those and they are also on the website, onehappywidow.com/journal. Is that spelled right? Journal. Yeah. So onehappywidow.com/journal. You can sign in there and you can get the templates for the journal pages that are blank. I think there's 5 or 6 of them that I've created. So if you just want those, you don't have to buy anything. You just go on there and get the journal pages and they're blank. But if you go on the group, you will have those journal prompts. Every day there'll be a new journal question that you can write in your journal if you want to, or you can just type it on the Facebook group. So that's where all of that is. All right. Some things that are coming up though, if you're on the Facebook group, the regular Facebook group, the free one, it's facebook.com/groups/onehappywidow. So most of you are probably already there because you knew about this. But if you're not, feel free to come join us there. But if you're on there, you already know. I got sent to Facebook jail this week for one little comment to one person's little picture that was supposed to be a joke. It was a joke. And it got misconstrued as bullying and harassment, which I disputed it. But I was in Facebook jail for a day. By the time I disputed it and they looked at it, they came back and they're like, yeah, we're sorry. We were wrong. We misunderstood. We've fixed it. But by then I was already out of Facebook jail. But just the fact that I can't even make a joke with somebody and like just, go back and forth with somebody on Facebook without being put in Facebook jail. That's the first time I've ever gotten put in Facebook jail because I try to stay middle of the line. I know it exists. I try not, and I certainly don't try to, put anything that offends people, whether it's on my regular page or my group page or whatever. But the fact that they have so much control over what we say and how we say it or whatever, like I'm a grown person. I can police myself. Thank you very much. And if I say something that offends somebody, they can leave the group. So, I'm like, this is a free country. All right. So anyway, because of all of that, I am not getting rid of the Facebook group. It will always stay there. It will be free. It will be there for everybody, and if I get put in jail for whatever, then I'll just have to be whatever. But point is, I want something better. I want something that our group members can be a part of that is just for us. And so while the Facebook group will stay and it will always be there and it will be free, and anybody who wants to join, as long as they answer the questions fully, they can join. But I'm also going to open up this other group, and it should be ready by summer. It's not a Facebook group. It's on another platform. And so I'm moving the whole One Happy Widow. Everything about One Happy Widow is going to the same platform. It will be my website, my blog, my courses, my free stuff that I offer out, the private group that we're going to put together, my courses, everything is going to be all over on this one platform. It's called Kajabi, and it's kind of expensive, but it's like my emails will be sent from there. Like everything will be from one place. So hopefully I won't have as many technology problems. And also the group will be, we can set up different like subcategories in our group. We can have different topics of conversation in different places instead of it just being a scroll down. Like instead of it being going to Walmart and everything there is just where you can find it. It's like going to the mall where you can just pick and choose the stores that you want to go to. You don't have to go shop the whole mall. You just shop the stores in the mall that you want to go to. So this will be the same kind of thing. You can just go into the discussions that you're interested in and go on there, and you can leave the other stuff off if it's not pertaining to you, and it'll be easier to find things. We can do our small group coaching. We can have our only available there. I'm going to be doing a book club, so we can join the book club. You'll be part of the membership. We're going to be doing walking groups, and we're going to have, we're going to be doing craft alongs, like sew alongs and crochet alongs. So we're just going to have like different little things that we can do, and it'll all be housed in one place. The Facebook group will still be there to kind of funnel people to find us. And then when they decide that they want something a little more personalized, then they will have that option to come and join us over there. Okay. And it's not going to be for everybody. Not everybody wants to be as involved. Some people just want that basic level of resource. They just want to be able to pop into the group and get some support, watch the YouTube videos and get a little bit of, advice or some resources for free. All that's going to stay. That's all. I mean, that's not going to change. That basic level of support and resource for free. That's always going to be there. But some people want more, and some people want more individualized attention, and they want deeper resources. And I want to provide that for everybody, but I have to be able to have the time to do it. So that's why my job is kind of switching over. So we're going to offer, resources for both types of groups of people. And I'm hoping by the summer we'll have that kind of in full swing. All right. So all that's going to be happening. And again, like I said, today's the last day to get that free Facebook, because this will be the last Facebook private group that I'm doing on Facebook. Any private stuff that I do after this with the course will exist over on the new platform as soon as I get it all moved over. And I'm also creating my weight loss course. So that'll be ready by summer. So for those of you who have turned to food for comfort and grief, like I have done, or, I got remarried. And so I kind of put on the honeymoon weight, like 40 pounds of honeymoon weight. I've been following my tried and true weight loss program that I've been doing. I'm down 12 pounds, and and I've been doing it for a month. So I'm creating that course. That's going to be ready over the summer for anyone who wants to join in with me on that. I think that's going to be it for what's going on. Now we can get to the nitty gritty and talk about the topic at hand. Like I said, it's not going to be a real long one. So I'll be able to talk for maybe about 15, 20 minutes, and then I can open it up to reading the chats over here on the side. Because if I read a lot of the chats, then I get off topic. So, and I just popped in to see Laurie said that she still can't connect to the private Facebook page. I just changed that setting like 30 minutes ago. So if you haven't tried it in the last 30 minutes, go back and try the link again. I also sent out a private invitation from the Facebook group to your email, but the link that I sent you should work now. So if you haven't tried it in the last 30 minutes, try it again. And then let me know if it still doesn't work. We're trying to get it fixed. It worked for my husband. So we'll see. Tammy Jones says walking group. Like if you've done a step bet, I'll be doing my own. It's step bet, but I'll be hosting a step bet just for people who want to join under us. And so we'll be doing that. So I got my Fitbit all blinged out and ready to start walking again. And so I'm ready to get into it. All right. So today we're talking about that grief is not a competition. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because you may either be one of these people, or you may know one of these people, or know a lot of these people. Okay, Laurie, I'm sorry. I will definitely address that as soon as I get done with all of this. So when we finish going live, I'll go back into the Facebook thing and try to see if I can fix what's going on with that. Because if you're having a problem with it, that means everybody's having a problem with it. So I'll get it fixed. All right. But anyway, you might know a person or several people who I call martyrs. And it's like that person, when you're talking to them, they always have to outdo you. They always have to, like, if you tell a story, they have a story that outdoes your story. Whatever you say, they got something better. They got something more. They got something bigger. They got something, whatever. And so those type people that you might know, it also works in grief. And I see it a lot in some of the Facebook groups, not ours, but in some of the other Facebook groups, I see the people, and it's like somebody tells a sad story about their situation, and then somebody else comes in and tries to outdo them with even sadder of a story. Oh, you got a sad story? Well, my story is even worse. Well, my story is even worse than yours. And it's like they're trying to outdo each other. And it becomes really annoying to sit and watch people try to outdo others on the level of their grief pain, or the level of their suffering. And grief is not a competition. Like, it's not, you don't get to win if you are the saddest person out there. It's not like we're not trying to outdo each other. We're trying to help each other. That doesn't mean that there isn't different levels of grief. It doesn't mean that there isn't somebody out there hurting worse than somebody else. I mean, it is. That does happen, but it's not up to us to go out there and try to say, well, my grief is worse than yours because my situation is worse than yours is. All right. And so you might have seen people like that in some Facebook groups. And to be honest, I have one person in particular that I know in person that I'm not going to name who it is, but you can probably figure out who it is. And my kids know this person too. And it's a woman, and she is always like, if you get into a conversation with her, she won't even let you finish your story. She will cut you off from your story, and she'll start in on her own story that is always more, worse, different than yours. I don't want to say better, because it's usually a suffering story. And so it's always that she's suffering from something worse than whatever you're suffering from. And it's like she doesn't even listen to your story because she's too busy trying to outdo your story. And it's annoying. It's very annoying. All right. And so, I want to make a few points about that. Number one, when people find out that you're widowed, you are already getting sympathy. They're already going to have sympathy for you. They're going to feel sorry for you. They're not going to know what to say. So they already look at you and they're like, whoa, she's got it bad. She's suffering. Right. So you're already getting sympathy just by the fact that you're widowed. You don't really have to wear the badge. You don't have to tell everybody. You don't have to tell the people at the McDonald's drive-thru that you're widowed. I mean, you can, but what's the point? Right. So unless the point is that you're just trying to get sympathy from everybody. And a lot of times that happens a lot in the beginning when we're in fresh grief. But once that starts to level out a little bit, then it's time to just be a person. So this topic might piss some people off today. I don't know. This one might be a little polarizing. I don't mean to offend anyone. I'm just trying to give you my opinion. And if you don't agree with it, that's okay too. We can agree to disagree, but this is my take on things. So your pain is just that. Your pain is your pain. It's not to be compared to other people's pain. It's just to be dealt with by you and figure out how to make yourself feel better. Don't wallow in it and then try to get other people to look down and say, oh, you poor thing. That's not really the purpose. And we're not meant to just be on this earth to suffer all the time. And so, yes, you might have it worse than somebody else. Like your pain might be more than somebody else's. Your suffering might be more than somebody else's. Your grief or your reason for grief might be a lot more than someone else's. My husband died at age 42. And so that story sounds like someone whose husband died at age 70 might look at me and say, wow, my husband died at 70, which I thought was, already soon, but this woman's husband died at 42. So he was even younger. But guess what? There's somebody else whose husband died at age 30 something. And so her husband was even younger than mine. And guess what else? There's someone else out there whose husband died at 20 something. Like there's always going to be somebody that, can outdo your story, can outdo your details, but that's not really the point. So when if I told my story and tried to be that martyr and be like, yeah, my husband only 42 when he died, that is a true statement. But like to try to say that in response to someone else's, like, well, my husband was 60 when he died. If I follow up with, oh yeah, well, my husband was 42 when he died. That is what I'm talking about. The facts are the facts, but when you follow up someone's facts with your facts to try to outdo them, that's when you're making your grief a competition. And that's where we don't need to be doing that. We need to be focused on the outward so that we can help each other instead of focusing on, yep, my pain's worse than yours. My grief is worse than yours. Because there's always somebody out there whose grief is worse than yours. There's always somebody out there whose husband died at a younger age, who had more than one loss at the same time, whose death was more traumatic than one other's. Death is death. I mean, at the end, the person is gone. And so, yeah, there's different ways that could have happened. Some are much more traumatic and much more, like, I don't know, like just the manner in which it happened are different. Some went gentle into that night, and some people, it was just with more violence, or some people had to witness their spouse dying in front of them, and some people did not. Some people had time to process it first with anticipatory grief. Some people was just taken by surprise. So there's all different kinds of situations of how it could happen. But the end result is that we're all widowed because our person has died. And so for us to set up competitions and see which one was more traumatic and which one made us more sad and which one can outdo the other one is not necessary for all that. So rather than to look inside and try to be like the top griever, and also when we look ahead, we look at people who maybe didn't have it as bad as we did, or we don't think they had it as bad as we did, or, or maybe, well, one person might say, well, when my husband died, he didn't leave me with any life insurance because he was only 27 and we didn't think about life insurance at that age. And so you're looking at these other people who might have been set up financially in a better situation than you, and you're looking at them and you feel jealous, and you feel like you're suffering more than they are because your situation is different from theirs. So instead of looking at what other people are going through and saying, well, I'm going through something worse than them, I'm suffering more than they are, instead of that, then look behind you, I guess you could say. Look at the people who are maybe even suffering more than you, and ask yourself how you could support them, how you could help them, or at least put yourself in this situation where, yeah, there's other people who maybe aren't suffering as much as me, but there's also lots of people who are suffering more than me. There's always somebody out there who has it worse than you. And I'm not just talking about with grief. I'm talking about with money. I'm talking about with problems. I'm talking about with stress. I'm talking about with jobs. I'm talking about with illness and health. Like there's always somebody who has more than you, and there's always somebody who has less than you. And so if we focus too much on the people who have more, who have it better, or we think that we're suffering more than them, then we're setting ourselves up for more unhappiness. We cannot heal and find happiness and purpose if we're focused so much on those people, or maybe we're focused on the people who have a living spouse. And we're like, yeah, well, of course you can do that because you have a husband who's still living and you're not grieving like I am. So, I mean, yeah, that's a true statement. But like if we take our focus too much on the people who have it better than we do, then we start wallowing in our own grief and finding reasons to feel sorry for ourselves and reasons not to feel better and reasons not to feel happiness, when we need to either focus on how to make ourselves feel better, or we need to focus on how can we make other people feel better with our, maybe if you've been widowed for a while, maybe you have some words of wisdom that you could share with somebody else and say, I know that you're hurting right now because you're in fresh grief, but let me tell you, I've been hurting for 3 years or whatever it may be. And I can promise you that it does get easier. It might not get better, but it gets easier. Or just give some words of wisdom to someone who is in a situation that might be, I don't know, worse than yours, or they might be suffering more than you, or they might be in more pain or more fresh grief, whatever that situation might be. All right. I don't have a whole lot more. But I will say this. When you're focusing on your own suffering, or you're focusing on the fact that you're suffering more than that person in front of you or around you, you're focusing on your suffering and you're not focusing on improving your life. So the suffering is going to be there. We are suffering. We're grieving. We're in pain. We have stress. That is just part of life. Like, we're going to have that no matter what. But if you're focusing so much on how much you're suffering worse than everybody else around you, you're not focusing on healing. You're not focusing on finding purpose in your life. You're not focusing on how you can help other people from your experiences. You're not focusing on how to make your life better. And so that's basically saying that you're accepting the situation that you've got right here, because if you're not doing anything to change it or make it better, then you've accepted that that's what it's going to be. The only person that can get you out of that is you. If you don't know how, then go find some resources. This is where, we don't want you to be stuck. We talked about this last week, getting stuck in that valley of grief. We don't want you stuck there. We don't want you to be stuck just thinking about all the crap that your life is right now, and not trying to climb out of that valley of grief so that you can get to a place where you feel better, where you feel purpose in your life, where you feel happiness in your life, where you can make something out of the days that you have left on this life. And if you're focusing on your grief all the time, or comparing it and trying to outdo others with your stories, you're not focusing on the right thing. And we're all going to have pity parties sometimes. Sometimes we just have those days, and that's totally normal. But when you're living like that all the time, or it becomes your personality, that's when it becomes more of a problem. All right. And so, does anybody know people like that? Do you know anybody either online or in person that you like all the things I'm describing? You're thinking, you're like a person is coming to your mind. You're like, yep, I know, so-and-so, Jane, whatever. Like, I'm not naming anybody I know for real, but like, is somebody coming to mind when I'm describing this? Like, yep, I know somebody like that. You might know several people like that. And I know several people, or I've seen several people's responses on Facebook, and I'm like, oh, yep, that's one of those martyrs, And sometimes it's like everybody in the group, in that Facebook group, that's what the whole that's like what the whole culture of that group is like a grief competition. I can't take that. That's like, I can't be around all that negativity all the time, because it drags me down, and I don't want to do that. But just know that if you know somebody like that, think about how you feel when you're around them. Like, if you know somebody who talks like that, like the martyr who talks all the time about, yeah, well, how's your day going? Well, like they always want to share their health problems with you or something like that. Like, I went to church the other day, and I was in this big group of people. We were getting ready to go sing with the choir, and there's a bunch of group of people, and it was like a Sunday school class or whatever. And I'm still new to the church, so I don't know very many people, but I heard this lady talking to somebody about some health problem that she was having, and she explained it. And then the next person that came by and said, how's it going? She explained that health problem to them. And then the next person, and I just heard it out of the side of my ear, and I'm just sitting there minding my own business. And then I'm looking around, and I happen to make eye contact with her, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? And she's like, well, and I thought, oh, here we go. And I'd never met this woman before. And she proceeds to tell me the same health story that she had just told. I already knew the health story because I'd heard her tell it to 3 other people about some kind of something that was going on with her. I don't want to get into the details, but and I'm thinking, lady, like, I just met you. I don't care to hear about your internal organs issue that you're having. Like, this is TMI. And like, I don't want to say I don't care, because I do care, but like, is this really how you want to portray yourself? is the person who's just telling everybody who will listen about your health problems. So that's the kind of person I'm talking about. Do you know anybody like that? And if you are that person, don't be that person. Like, change your mindset and don't be that person. Okay. Because that type of person does not draw people in. Like, if you're looking to be that, like that person who is constantly complaining about how bad their life is, people are not drawn to them. You're not having this group of people come around you because they feel so sorry for you and they're all going to come to you and want to help you. As a matter of fact, it pushes people away. Because when you be that person, when you're that person who everything that comes out of your mouth is like a complaint or like a something about how shitty your life is, people are like, oh my God, like they don't want to be around that all the time. If that's all that you are to them, if that's like your personality, you're pushing people away. So if you're trying to get sympathy, or if you're trying to get the, oh, bless your heart, you poor thing, you're not going to get it, because the more you do that stuff, the more people are going to just try to avoid you, because you're that negative Nancy, you're the person you're Debbie Downer or whatever you want to call that. And like, people just don't want to spend a whole lot of time around somebody who's negative like that all the time. You can have your time. And when you go to therapy, or if you go to grief share, that's a time like we're all sharing our sob stories. And so that's the place to do that. But even then, you're not trying to outdo, you're just sharing. And so just don't be that person, because you're not going to draw people to you, right? You're not going to draw the help that you want or the support that you want. As a matter of fact, you're going to build up this wall around you, and people are going to start avoiding you. And so there's all kinds of different ways that people compare. There's the way that your spouse might have died. There is a hierarchy of ways that might have happened. Some is more traumatic than others. Whether it was a terminal illness and you began to grieve with that anticipatory grief, and then when they did die, you're already like kind of in grief, and so it's more of a gradual. Or whether it was they died in an accident, and you just got a phone call and somebody told you, hey, by the way, your spouse, got in this accident and they didn't make it. Or if they committed suicide and maybe you witnessed it, or maybe it was right there close to you, or other family members mentioned it. That might be something that is very traumatic, could cause you some post-traumatic stress disorder. And it could have been a horrific thing. Those are different ways that people can start dealing with their grief as a widow. How you became a widow is so different. Everybody's story is a little bit different. But it's not a competition. It's like we're all here, and the end result is all the same. But I'm not saying that yours wasn't worse than someone else's. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we don't need to be comparing on purpose to try to see. You don't win when you are the one who suffered the most. That's not the way that you win. It doesn't mean you don't need help. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't ask for help. If you're suffering and you need help, it's okay to say, hey, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, and I don't know what to do. Can you please help me? Can someone please help me? Can someone please give me a resource, or someone please point me in the right direction? Or can someone please tell me that it's going to get better? That's normal. That's what you do. That's where people come in and they want to help. That's when people want to help you, is when you ask, when you're humble and you say, I am struggling. I'm having a really tough time. I need some help. Can someone please help me? It's taken in so much more. Like, that's when people come out and say, let's help this person. She's struggling. She needs help. He's struggling. He needs help. Let's see what we can do. But that also means that you're willing to take the help and try to make yourself feel better. The person who's just putting it out there, I don't know if that person wants to get better or not, or if they're just trying to let us know that they're suffering and then their life sucks really bad. Like, are you telling me this because you want me to help you? Are you telling me this because you want me to feel sorry for you? Are you telling me this because you don't think my suffering is enough to compare to yours? Because what happens when I'm saying something about what happened and someone else comes and tries to outdo me? What that tells me is they don't care about my suffering, because mine's not enough for them. Like, oh, you don't care about my suffering because yours is worse, or you're just concerned with telling me what is, what's your problem is. You didn't even listen to my problem. Like, the person that I know that fits this mold the best, that don't want to name who it is, I don't know that she ever listens to anything that I say, because she's only listening long enough to interject her own story and take over. And by the time it's over, I'm thinking, did she even hear what I just said? And and she surely didn't get to the end of the story because she cut me off before it was done. And does she even care about my story or my suffering? Or is it my suffering doesn't count unless it's worse than hers? And guess what? It ain't ever going to be worse than hers, because she's always going to have a story that outdoes mine. So it's not, it just makes me feel like you don't care about me. You care about telling me about your suffering. And to be honest, no, I don't care about yours because, like, why should I care about yours if you don't care about mine? And that's really not the kind of relationship that we need to be developing between each other. We need to be developing. I know that you're hurting, and how can I help you? And do you want to get better? Because I want to help you get better. So that's like my whole thing is I want to help people. But you can't help people who aren't ready to be helped, who don't want to be helped. So number one, I want to help the people who want to get help, who are ready. But number two, I want to find the people who aren't ready to get help and figure out how can we get them to the point where they want to get help. I don't want to just dismiss them and say, well, you don't want any help, so go away. I don't want that to be the attitude. I want that to be, that's really sad that you are in such a dark place that you don't even want to help yourself. I really hope that we can help you get motivated and see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe inspire you to know that it doesn't always have to be like this. Your life does not have to be where it is right now and how it is right now. There are people who can help you. There are resources out there that you can find, but you got to go find them and you got to go use them. You got to go out and accept the help and then try to help yourself. So I don't know if that all makes any sense, but that's kind of like the full circle on how we are. And so that's pretty much the last thing that I just want to say is that the level of your suffering does not define the depth of your grief. So in other words, just because if you can't convince somebody that you're suffering the most to convince them that you loved your spouse more than other people. I think some people think or when they decide not to move forward with, maybe they decide they don't ever want to find love again. That's totally their right. But don't make judgments and comments about people who do as if they didn't love their spouse the same amount that you did. Just because you don't move forward in love doesn't mean that you loved your husband more than I loved mine. Just because you think that your suffering is more than mine doesn't mean that you loved your spouse more than I loved mine. Just because you're grieving more or you're more sad or you can prove that you're more sad does not mean that your depth of devotion was more to your spouse than others. And people don't want to feel like you think that about them. And we shouldn't go out and try to prove how devoted we were to our spouse, because that's not for anybody else to know anyway. The fact is that we all share a common human experience, which is grief for the death of a loved one. And we should all be trying to help each other collectively to get from one place to a higher place. And by competing with the level of our grief, that's not the way we're going to do it. That's not what we're here for. And that's not the reason why we're left on this earth. So hopefully that makes sense. And I know that was kind of like a lecture, but I'm not trying to talk down on anybody. I'm trying to maybe open your eyes to what your situation might be, or maybe you just know somebody who's like that. And so we got two choices. We can try to help that person, but sometimes they don't seem like they want help. You try to help them, but then at some point, if that's all they're going to do is complain, then it's time to focus on some other things. Because if we stay around people like that all the time, we tend to become one. So don't surround yourself with martyrs, because you will become one. And that's not going to help you or anyone else or them. All right. So that's pretty much all I've got. And so I'm going to go back and see if we have questions and if we have anything else that we want to discuss. We tune in to listen to her real live stuff. Thank you for sharing. And then we wanted to get back to Humble Dad. He had a question. He said he's talking to a young lady. She thinks I'm not ready to date, but is willing to wait and with me through my grief. Thoughts. So I guess that I mean, I'm all for moving forward and trying to find someone, to spend your time with. My question to you, humble dad, would be, are you ready to move forward? Or are you just are you just testing it out to see if you're ready to move forward? Because if you're not ready, it doesn't mean you can't date. You definitely can, as long as you're open and honest to that other person. And if you're not sure, you can say, well, I'm not really sure how ready I am to be serious, but I would like to spend some time with someone. So as long as you're honest with her about your intentions, even if you don't know what they are, be honest about that too. But let her know, because you said that she thinks you're not ready. Well, are you? Like, is she right? Is she wrong? And so that's kind of where I can't really give you a whole lot more after that, because I don't know. I don't know if you're ready or not. You might not know if you're ready or not. And so if you definitely are ready, then you need to tell her that. And dating a widowed person is really tough. It's tough on that person, but it's also tough on us. And because it's hard for them they can't relate to what we're going through. It doesn't mean it won't work. It just means that there's going to have to be some sacrifices on both sides. And I actually want to make a video about that too. I've made a couple videos about the dating situation, about 3 or 4 videos about the dating on the YouTube. So I would look at those and just, see if there's anything in those videos that might help. But a lot of times widowed people think they're ready to date again until they start dating again. And then they start feeling like, nope. I thought I was, but I am not. Because they'll still go out with somebody and it maybe starts getting serious. And then they start feeling guilty, or they start comparing that person to their late spouse. And they're like, I thought I was ready and I'm not. That's a common thing. And it's okay to dip your toes in and then step back and then maybe wait a little while and then dip in again. And that's okay. You don't have to be ready for like full-blown marriage again to enter into the dating site or the dating world. You can just be like, oh, I just want to spend some time with someone. And so, but as long as you're honest with that person that you're with, then it's all okay, because then they can decide whether they want to go forward with your intentions or not, So as long as you're honest and they're honest, then you move forward with that. But I would say definitely don't let it stop you. And if you tell them you're not sure that you're ready to get serious and you just want to go out, then she can either decide to wait around until you are serious, or she can be like, okay, cool, we'll go out until, whenever. So it kind of depends on what her intentions are also. All right. Thank you for the link. Also, hello from London. I really appreciate what you're doing. That's from LC. And I'm 3 years in on my grief journey. You cover so many various areas. Thank you. Yeah, I'm like 4.5 years in. So things that happen to me are the things that I bring up and put out there to talk about. So the longer I'm in this journey, I guess the more things that are happening. And I'm starting to think, like, what happens if I run out of topics? So when you guys have topics you want me to talk about, then you let me know so I can come up with stuff. Michelle says hello from snowy Pennsylvania. Snowy, I'm in Georgia and they said we're supposed to get snow tonight, this weekend. I can't even believe it. I'm hoping we don't, but no Facebook for me, says Sheila. Okay, that's fine. You can join us on the, if you're Sheila, if you're on the email list, then when we get ready to open up our community over there, then you'll get to know about it then. And I don't blame you. I still can't, walking group, we already touched that. Okay. Donna from Texas. Hello, Donna. Sue from Idaho. Teresa says, totally agree. Lucy says, you look beautiful, even with the blue hair. I think it's like the same color as my eyes. My eyes are kind of bluish gray. So, maybe it's the matchy thing. But thank you. That's really nice. Kitty from Colorado. Love what you're doing here. I'm not on Facebook, but what I'm hearing here is good. So Kathleen, Kitty, when we get ready to have our other group that we will have on the Kajabi site, then you'll be able to come on there. Oh, another thing about that is I'll be able to keep the creeps from coming in. And so sometimes we get the creeps that kind of like sneak in and they pretend to be real widowed people and they're not. And then they come into the group and they start bothering our members and I have to block them. And that's just a pain in the butt. So we won't have to worry about that either. So another plus. Marsha Magic says hello. Linda says yes, too much negativity drags me down. After 4 or 5 years, they need healing in areas that seem to be just like it happened to them yesterday. Yeah. So if you've got, like, if you know somebody who is talking about years later that they still can't function, like they still haven't moved their spouse's things from the chair that it was sitting in before they died, and they still have trouble going to work, or they quit their job, or like they still are feeling like they're in denial after years, that's probably complicated grief, and they probably need to seek some professional help to kind of get past that. Yes, ask for help and receive some direction. LC says, very interesting. Jackie says, so true. They are waiting for an opening, but not really listening. Yeah, like when you're talking to somebody and they're just waiting for that chance to like cut you off so that they can outdo you and take over the story. A little situation happened like that in my grief share group. I was going to grief share, even though it's way later on in years, but I started going to grief share across the street at my church, and I went there for like 4 or 5 different sessions, and the people there are really nice, but there is one person there, and she's super nice, but she dominates the conversation, and like she doesn't let anybody else get a word in edgewise almost. And once she starts talking, she takes over. And I feel like I have 2 choices. I can either cut her back off and then resume my story, or just give up and just let her finish. And I'm like, maybe she just needs to be heard more than me. But I finally just had to stop going because it wasn't helping me. It was helping her a lot because she was, dominating the conversation or the therapy, but I just wasn't getting anything out of it because she was just like, she has a really strong personality and she was taking over. And the funny thing is, the first time I went to that group, she recognized me on Facebook. She was like, hold on a minute, you look so familiar. She's like, do you make YouTube videos? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh my gosh, I just watched one of your videos last week. So she was my first person that like recognized me off of YouTube from like out of the blue, which was so cool. And then she turned out to be this person that I don't know, maybe she's watching this, but like, and I really like her. It's just, strong personality. And so I just had to like step back and say, maybe I'll go to the next round. I wasn't ugly about it. I didn't say anything about it. I didn't drop the mic and be like, I can't be in this group because no, I just, just everybody has their thing that they need. Right. Let's see. Great topic. Great info. Thank you. I really love the Facebook group because everyone is respectful and supportive of each other. So definitely our Facebook group is awesome. Like it is an awesome group. The people in it are fantastic. It's just Facebook, the platform sucks. And it's just the best place for us to get found because so many people are on Facebook, but so many people now are like leaving Facebook because there's so much control and so much lack of freedom of speech on there that it's really hard to be to make that your main platform because you don't really have any control over how it goes. And I really would like if I put out a statement or a question or something, not everybody, I have 800 people in that group and maybe 20 people will see it. And I don't like, if I'm going to put a group up and I'm going to ask questions or give out a resource or, gather information or put information out there, if I put something out there, I want all 800 members to benefit from that piece of information, not just the ones that happens to come across their feed. So that's another problem with Facebook. Anyway. So Tammy says, me too, Jonice. The Facebook group is my safe little corner of the internet where I can relate to everyone and give and receive support. So yeah, again, it's an awesome place, but not because of Facebook. Definitely. It's because of our members. It's because of the people that make up that group. It's an awesome group of people, I have to say. Hello from Ireland. Love listening to you. Thank you. Ireland, I just love listening to people with different accents of all different kinds. And I try to, sometimes I try to imitate different accents, and some accents I can imitate pretty well, but Irish is not one of them. And Australian is definitely not. I love to listen to an Australian or a New Zealand. I know they're a little different, but kind of similar. I love to listen to those accents, but I cannot imitate an Australian or a New Zealand or an Irish accent, even though my ancestors are from Ireland and my husband's are as well. Joni says, yes, Tammy. Melinda says, Melinda from North Carolina, the state with all 4 seasons in 1 week. Oh, Melinda, same with Georgia. Ours could be all 4 seasons in 1 day. Like you wake up and it's 30, and then by the middle of the day, it's 70 something. And by the afternoon, it's 50, 40 something. And then by night, it's 9 again. Like it's winter at night, fall in the morning, spring, summer in the middle of the day, back to fall, and then back to winter at night. That's what we do in Georgia. Barbara says, you are an inspiration. That is so nice, Barbara. Thank you. That's really sweet. Naomi says, love this talk. I was considered a poor suffering widow when I got a letter from an attorney in another state offering to buy my house. Wow. I mean, if it was legit, like, were you looking to sell it? Because, hey, if they give you a good price for it these days, housing prices are high. I get some strange texts sometimes about me wanting to sell a property that I don't even own. So I don't know. That's a different topic. Hello from South Wales, UK. Patricia says, thanks for the videos. They've been very helpful. So the videos are going to continue to come. I'm kind of going over to more live ones more often, because I don't have to do as much editing, and people can, I love to interact with you guys live. So that's been really nice. It won't always be like that, but it'll probably be over half of mine will probably be live sessions on Saturdays. Sheila says, 1.5 years into this widow life, I have not improved much. 2020 was so difficult to get help with all the shutdowns. That's true. My neighbor lost her husband 4 months after I lost mine. We lean on each other. So Sheila, I'm glad you have somebody that can help you that's going through it kind of together. That kind of happened with me and my husband. My husband is also widowed, and so we help each other. You know, he just went through a rough week last week because his late wife's birthday fell last week. And so he just, he had a rough week. And coming up, and her gravesite is in the cemetery, right? Like he passes by it every day on the way home from work. So that's got to be tough. But, and he went to the cemetery to go visit her. He posted a few things on Facebook about her and some memories that he had and some pictures of her, which I thought was very sweet. And so we deal with it twice in this house. And then coming up in April is the 17th is the anniversary of her death. April 17th. And then the 24th, a week later, is his birthday, and he had to bury her on his birthday. And so his birthday is now bittersweet because of that. And so we're dealing with all of that between now and next month. And then come June will be my turn, because June was our anniversary, his death date, and Father's Day all kind of falls in June at some point. So he'll do the April thing, I'll do the June thing, and then we'll go to the holidays where we'll both do the thing. So you guys know how that works. All the milestones that you kind of go up and down. It's like a roller coaster. And then I know Jonice says, I see Europe is in the house. Like we got all kinds of people from Europe. Same with France. So yeah, all kinds of other, people all over the world. That's awesome that we can reach so many people for free through the internet. It's amazing, because when I was growing up, we didn't have internet. A lot of you probably feel that same way. I feel like the Facebook members are my friends and love all the support. So Laurie, I have to agree. We have an awesome Facebook group for sure. Melinda Barefoot in Sheila says, I'm in North Carolina too. And then LC says, yes, Europe is in the house. And wow, that's a lot. I'm not sure what's a lot, but to confirm the Facebook group is open. Oh, okay, cool. So, how can I join the Facebook group? Okay. So we have 2 Facebook groups. I don't know which one you're talking about. The free one that everybody's talking about is so awesome is, I will put the link here. It's facebook.com/groups/one-happy-widow. Okay. So I put it in the chat. Facebook.com/groups/one-happy-widow. That's free. We got like 800-900 members, something like that. But just make sure that you answer all the questions and put your email address in, because that's how I weed out, the creeps. So if you don't answer the questions, you don't put the email address in, then it will get declined and you'll have to come back and do it again. Just make sure you answer the 3 questions, the email address, and then I think you have to click a box that says I agree to the rules or something like that. I know it seems strict, but it's the best way to keep out people who are trying to take advantage and trying to take advantage of the widows on the group. So we don't want that. So that's the free one. And then there's the 1 month of the specialized one that we're doing that starts today. Today's the last day that you can do it. And then that's onehappywidow.com/courses. That one's got the course on there. It's got the mini course on there, and it's got the $17 Facebook membership that's a private Facebook that's got the journal entries. It's got the live sessions that we're going to do on there, 4 live sessions for the month that will not be anywhere else. They're not going to be on YouTube publicly. It'll just be us. And then it's like a small group coaching session. And that one, you don't have to buy the course to buy the membership to the private Facebook. It's $17 and it'll give you the 30 days. It starts today, ends on April 10th. So Gloria says, hi, I lost my husband about a month and a half ago. I keep learning I'm most likely still in shock. That scares me because I wonder what's going to happen after the shock. I don't feel as if I am. So Gloria, it's one of the things that makes a difference is whether it was an anticipated death or whether it was a sudden death, because the grieving is a little different in the beginning. So I don't know what your situation was. Mine was anticipated. So my husband had cancer and we knew from the very beginning that it was terminal. So we started to prepare for that. Not that you really can, but like my grief started at diagnosis, not at the death. So by the time he died, I wasn't as much in the denial stage. But I also did not feel like I was grieving hard enough or like I wasn't crying enough. And so I felt kind of weird because I had already started the grief. And so it wasn't really a huge change. But I know that for people who are dealing with a death that's sudden, it's like your whole world turns upside down in a second. And so the grief, the numbness and denial and shock is probably much more profound in the beginning. And then after a while, it does start to wear off. It could take up to a year usually before that numbness starts to wear off, and then the denial wears off, and then you really start to realize, like, whoa, this is real, like really real. And now what? So that's a lot of times why people say the second year is harder than the first. I don't know that it's actually harder than the first, but it is different. And the way that it's different is in the first year, you're kind of like a robot. You don't even realize this is real yet. You're numb. You're in denial. You may be angry. You go through a lot of the first stages of grief. You're barely surviving because you're just putting one foot in front of the other. You're going through legal stuff. You're going through paperwork stuff. You're going through changes in maybe where you live and your finances. Like there's so many changes that you're just like, oh my God, you're in a tailspin just trying to make it from day to day. And a lot of times we think, okay, if we can just get through that first year, the first year of milestones, when we get to that first year, then okay. But that's not really a finish line. That's like if you ever drive those racing, those video games where you're racing and you go around the lap and you're like trying to win whatever place. And as soon as you finish the finish line, they're like, you got second place. But guess what? Now you're in lap 2 and now you start over again and you keep going. And so you're trying to go to that, what you call a finish line, but it's not really a finish line. It's just a line in a loop that you just keep going around and around. So when you finish that first year milestone, you're like, okay, I did it. Now, if I can just get through the first year, I'm cool. But not really. That's when you kind of realize, oh, wait, now I have to do it all over again. And now it's been a year since I've seen my spouse, and now I have to do it again. And then the reality is also there that wasn't there as much in the beginning. And so it's kind of like you shift over mentally into this bummer stage, like, wow, this isn't any better. Like this, now you realize how real it is. And you start to get weary, like you're not in that reaction stage anymore. You're in that more like you're living every day. And you start to you can really get worn down mentally, because now it's just like, it's that much longer since you've seen them and you miss them that much more. And the reality is setting in. And so that's where year 2 is kind of like, it's the tired year. It's like the weary, like it's the deflated year, right? Because reality is setting in. Okay. Anticipated. He had the same diagnosis as Dewey's. Okay. So that's, I think you're first in shock when they get diagnosed, and then it's a different kind of shock after they actually pass away. Because like I said, it's like, wow, they've actually died. And now you're kind of in that, in that numb stage, denial stage. It starts to be, once it does start to become real, then, but it's not, but Gloria, it's not like one day you're numb and in denial, and then the next day the Band-Aid's ripped off and you're suddenly like, your eyes are open. It's just a gradual thing. So you won't realize it's going on until you look back and you're like, oh, wow. It happens a little bit more each day. So it's not just going to be like you wake up one day and you're just not in shock anymore. It'll be a very gradual thing as time goes by. Anticipated grief for 5 years, now in the second year of grief, absolutely harder than the first. So yeah, I think that's just the way that people experience it. For me, I did not feel that the second year was worse. It was different in a different kind of way. But I think also by then I had already started to just put my life back in order and start looking ahead and trying to find some way to survive. So my focus was on that, as well as just trying to help my kids get through. And so for me, I did not feel that the second year was harder. It was just a lot different. But I could definitely see how people would see that it's harder, because it just depends on how you deal with that transition in year two, about how everything is now real. And you realize that there's no finish line. There's no, if I can just get to so-and-so, then it'll be okay. You're never going to get to so-and-so. You're just going to have another day where you wake up and they're still gone. And so you have to reconcile those feelings. And that can be tough in year two. Now I have to pretend I'm fine. Everyone is over it. Yeah, everybody else gets over it before we do, right? Like we got to live with it for the rest of our lives. But people are there in the first month or two, and they're wanting to give you all the attention and try to help you. And then they have another life to get back to. They have to get back to their life. And so they, and then they feel uncomfortable because they don't really know what to do with you after that. And so they either ignore you because they're not sure how to deal with you, or they deal with you in other ways that are inappropriate. But a lot of times they just kind of like, okay, well, your grief. Okay. It's time to move on now. It's time to move on, get on with life now. You've grieved long enough. Okay. It's time to, get back to real life or whatever. And it's for their comfort. They're ready for us to get better so that they can feel better about being around us. And so that's when it gets really hard to me, is when everybody is like, the initial part is over, the support. They're not bringing you stuff to eat anymore. They're not coming over and asking how they can help you anymore. They've gone on with their life and they've left you. And you're like, what about me? I'm still here and I'm still struggling. And the funny thing is that when I felt like I was struggling the most was like 6 months in. And by then I felt like I had like lost my window of opportunity to ask for help when I really needed help. Then I felt like people would say, why is she asking for help now? Like, it's been 6 months. Can't she, hasn't she figured it out by now? But it was harder then than it was in the beginning, because I didn't have any more support, and I was tired and I was weary. And my kids were really that's when my kids really started going off the deep end, and I really needed help. But I didn't feel like I could ask, because I felt like people would say, why is she asking now of all times? Like, she needs to get on with her life, So Sheila says, now my grown children just ignore me. And you know what? It's weird with kids. It's really weird with kids. My husband, JP, his kids are grown, and we're grown when their mom died. They're in their 30s. All of them are in their 30s. And they just, they pretty much ignore him, but they're mad at him because he got remarried, and probably because it happened so quick and they didn't like that. And I get that. I get that being mad, but at the same time, it's not their life to live. And so I can see them being mad in the beginning, be like, wow, Dad, you didn't even wait but 2 months before you met a new lady, and then you married her 3 months later or whatever, and or 5 months later. And I can see them being upset about it, but like, we've been married for 2.5 years now. And they're more angry about it now than they ever were. And they say that I broke their family up and all this stuff. But like, I didn't do anything mean to them. I just married their dad. That's all I did. And so they don't like me for that reason. I even let one of them live in my house with his wife and his 4 kids for 10 months, rent free, during the pandemic when he lost his job. And they finally had to go. And then after they left, they got mad at me because I did not apologize to them for how they think I treated them when they lived with me. So, everybody has their own point of view of how things go. So I'm at 6 months. Yes, to the 6 months being lost window of opportunity when you really need help. I'm at 6 months and feel just like that. We learn to pretend to be fine so as not to make people feel our grief we still experience. So yeah, we're so programmed to protect other people from our pain that it's almost like it's embarrassing to cry in public or to talk about our grief after a certain amount of time because it makes people uncomfortable. And so we're like, we don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable for being sad, for being widowed or whatever. And I don't get it, but it is true. And I do it too. Like, I don't want to talk about my widowed state all the time. And then there's still people who get mad at me because I call myself a widow. My kid's grandmother, who I no longer call my mother-in-law because I'm not married to her son anymore. So, but Dewey's mom, she even told my kids, she's like, I don't know why your mom always talks about being a widow. She ain't no widow no more. She's remarried. Like, me getting remarried didn't bring their dad back to life. Like, it did not end my grief. It did not stop my suffering. It sure as hell didn't stop my kids from suffering from their dad. Their dad's still dead, and they're still grieving from it. And I'm still dealing with their grief. I'm still dealing with my grief, and I'm dealing with my husband's grief because he lost his wife too. So the widowed experience did not change just because I got remarried. So I know plenty of people who are remarried who still call themselves widows. A lot of the widowed influencers, if you want to call it that, people who have blogs and websites and podcasts and YouTube channels and all that, like a lot of the well-known ones, most of them have gotten remarried or are dating or are moving forward. But we're still sharing our widowed experiences because it doesn't take away from the fact that I know what it feels like to lose a spouse and that I still deal with it daily. We talked last week about secondary loss. Trust me, it is a real thing. And getting remarried does not solve your widowed problem. Like, you still have the same feelings. You still miss your spouse. It doesn't change that. You still love your spouse. You can grieve and love someone new at the same time, but it doesn't take away your grieving. A lot of it has made my life easier. Like, I don't have to live as a single person anymore. So a lot of things that I don't have to worry about car, repairs and cutting grass and things like that. That has made my life a lot easier. There's a lot of man things that I don't have to do anymore because I have a man around the house now. But that's not what grief is all about. And so the grief feelings, the loss is still there. And so I still consider myself a widow that is remarried. My husband still considered himself widowed and is remarried. You can ask him and he'll tell you. And I think most people would. So I've started calling myself single so I don't have to explain. I get that. Yeah, I get that. Like, I can't, like, on a form, I don't fill out widowed anymore because I'm married. But so it kind of, I guess it helps other people not feel so bad about my situation. I don't know. A lot of people who I meet now don't even know, or they won't know unless, they get to know me a little better later on down the road. Melinda says, I hid my tears from my children for the longest time. I felt like I was protecting them when actually I wasn't. Melinda, I did the same thing. I did exactly the same thing. I didn't want them to feel bad and see me cry and feel like they had to comfort me when my job was to comfort them. So I cried in private, and I didn't hardly ever let them see me cry. And later I found out that it made them think that I didn't care or that I wasn't very sad. Especially my youngest one, who was 7 when he died, and she's 11 now. I overheard her talking in a conversation, and she was telling her siblings, Mom didn't even cry about Daddy. So I don't even think she loved him. So what I'm trying to protect them from having to, comfort me was actually made them think that I didn't care about losing their dad. And it also made them think that it wasn't okay to cry in front of people. So it was a mistake that I made. I should have cried when I felt like crying. I should have allowed it. We should have just all been able to cry about it together. But, we tell a lot of jokes about it. We have some dark humor that other people would probably be like, whoa, I can't believe you just made a joke about that. We make dead dad jokes on a regular, but only amongst us. But you can either cry about it or laugh about it. And we do a little bit of both. So, and then Joni says, and then you have the women who are widowed, but still consider themselves married. Exactly. That's, and that's hard for me to make comments about, but, in the beginning, you will feel that way. In fresh grief, you're going to feel like, I'm still married. I don't want to take my wedding ring off. And I'm not, they'll say I'm married to an angel or I'm married to a husband in heaven or something like that. And it's okay to say those kinds of things for a while. But I feel like if you always feel like that for years later, that's a complicated grief issue. I feel like, because, marriage ends at death or divorce. So if you're widowed, your marriage ended at death. Till death do us part. You are parted. And so it doesn't mean you have to move on in love, but part of accepting your situation is accepting that you are not married anymore. And they could say, I hate the word widow. Well, I might hate the word widow too, but that doesn't make me any less of one. You are one. Whether you admit it or not, you are. And so part of healing, I think, is accepting that. Because if you don't accept it, then, you're putting some of your grief down inside and you're not dealing with it. And it's going to come out later at some point, the time when you're not ready, maybe. So Melinda, I did the same thing. And then I made the big mistake later when I thought it was safe to talk about it. It made them disappear. I see. So Sheila said about her kids ignoring her. So like I said, kids deal with things in such different ways. I thought about making a course, about how to parent grieving children, but I don't even know how to start on that because every kid reacts so differently to the death of their parent that I don't think there's a course I could make that would encompass like all the resources, because every kid is different and needs a different type of support. So I wouldn't even know where to start on that one because, some kids seem to be okay. Some kids seem to be okay for a while. Some kids grieve later. Some kids grieve right away. I mean, it's just, the kid thing is tough. And I've got a kid who's on the spectrum. And so he doesn't know how to express his feelings in a way that a neurotypical person would. And so he feels it. He just doesn't know how to show it on the outside. He doesn't express it very much. And so it can make for some explosive emotional outbursts sometimes. So Linda says that's good. At death, we aren't. So it makes it easier to say we aren't married. So it's just, I think it's just part of an acceptance. It's just, when you can start saying that you aren't married anymore, you don't have to call yourself single. You can if you want to, but like if you're still saying, I consider myself married and I always will, you might feel that way in the beginning, but there comes a time when it's time to accept your situation and to not accept that you are widowed or to say that you still feel like you're married or you still consider yourself married is kind of like saying my husband didn't really die. There's a little bit of a connection there where it's, like it has to come with that acceptance. And it's hard. It's hard to do. Nobody wants to do it. But for your own healing, it's important, I think, to accept the reality of the situation so that you can move forward with your healing, your grief healing. So, and Sheila says, I have two boys. Both are very different. Yeah, Sue says, I offer a chance for my daughters to talk about their dad, a funny story, and how much he loved them. We all end up in tears, but we are strong for each other. So we do the same thing. We just share stories a lot about their dad and things that he would do. And we make fun of him and laugh about it and, those kind of things. And it does help us to bond. So, and Sheila, I have 4 children and they are all 4 of them have grieved differently. And some the same, a lot of them have done this, a lot of the same things, but then a lot of them have done, a lot of different things. And so it took me a while, sometimes hindsight, to look back and say, oh, that must be a manifestation of their grief. But you don't see it at the time. You just see it as disobedience or disrespect or laziness or other kinds of depression or acting out, all kinds of stuff. So even though I've been through it with my 4 kids, I still don't consider myself an expert because every day I feel like I'm failing my kids because grieving my children has been the hardest part of losing my husband. Honestly, harder than anything else I've done. And it hasn't gotten any easier. Even 4.5 years later, it has not gotten any easier. They are tough. They're tough. And they're teenagers. So it's like, that's tough anyway. But grieving teenagers, I don't know. And I teach teenagers for a living. I teach autistic teenagers for a living. Most of them are. I teach special ed. So my kids are like in various places on the spectrum and various places of learning deficits and things. And so I do it at work and then I come home and I do it at home. And it's, it's tough. All right. So we are way over an hour. I'm thinking it's going to be a short one and it's just turned into another long one, but I think we've had a good talk. Don't forget, if you want the journal pages, onehappywidow.com/journal. If you want the courses, today's the last day to sign up to get the free Facebook group along with it. So onehappywidow.com/courses. If you want to join our Facebook group, just look on Facebook groups for One Happy Widow and ask to join there, the free one. So all kinds of resources for you. And I'm not taking anything away. I never plan on taking anything away, especially the free stuff. I'm just going to add more things to the resources. So that's my whole goal, is to just add more resources to help more people. All right. So go out there and find those martyrs and tell them that it's time to move forward. I don't want to say move on. I almost said move on. That's not right. Go find those martyrs and try to, get them to start thinking in a positive way. Like we got to change that. We don't want to be around a whole bunch of martyrs. And if you're around a bunch of them and you can't change them, then find a different group, because you don't want to become one. All right. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. And next week, by the way, is not going to be a live. We're going to be going to Tennessee on Wednesday. We're coming back on Sunday. So I'm going to pre-record, and I'm just going to have it come out on Saturday at 4:00, but it will not be a live one. It will be a pre-recorded one. So it'll be 2 more weeks before we have another live session, but I'll keep in touch and let you guys know what's going on. And maybe, I'll give you an update on our vacation. We're going on a little trip, just me and JP. We're going to leave the kids to their own devices and hope that they don't burn the house down while we're gone. All right. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you next time. I appreciate all of you, and I care about all of you. Y'all have a good day. Have a good week, and God bless you. Bye.